Welcome to the set of Football Night in America. Rodney Harrison, Tony Dungy, Mike Tirico. A lot of crazy things going on in the NFL right now. And I want to focus on the news that stunned all of us as we were coming on air at 7 o'clock Eastern on Sunday night. The announcement from the Packers that Mike McCarthy, the head coach since 2006, had been fired. What was your first reaction?
I was stunned. I felt like I was just really shocked that, you know, when Mike called it out, I was just really shocked. But I felt like it was the right thing to do. Whether it was the right timing, I don't know. But I just felt like it was the right thing to do because the players weren't responding. Aaron Rodgers, he seemed like he was disinterested. And it just seemed like it was a lot of negativity there. I just felt like it was time for a change, Coach.
To me, this is what you do when you're 2-14 and you've lost for 3 or 4 years in a row and everybody knows what's going to happen. You don't fire a coach that's taking you to the playoffs, that's taking you to a Super Bowl just on a whim after a game. Hey, I go home for 2 hours, we didn't look good, so I'm firing my coach. Mike McCarthy has done too much for this organization. To me, you let him go to the end of the year and you say, hey, we decided to part ways. I just didn't think it was right.
Just surprised me. You think of the Steelers and the Packers as those organizations that have deep, long roots. And we had mentioned during the show, just the second time the Packers in 100 seasons of football have fired their head coach during a season. And, you know, the street address for the Green Bay Packers is 1265 Lombardi Avenue. There's a street named after Mike Holmgren, street named after Mike McCarthy. That's what happens when you win Super Bowls as a head coach in Green Bay. So maybe that's why the timing felt odd. Not because of the record and the longevity, but because it's the Packers. And it's just not the way they had done business in the past. But you could all see it coming. You knew things weren't connecting the way they once had.
And you talk about, Aaron Rodgers looking disinterested out there. I think he's frustrated because he doesn't have the weapons that he's used to having. They had a dynamic passing game. They had receivers all over the place. And now he has one guy that can get open for him. And I don't think that's the head coach's fault.
And you guys said it last week. It's the personnel acquisitions and the decisions they've made of what they've tried to do to surround the quarterback who is a star. Mike McCarthy would always tell us when we go up there for meetings doing Monday Night Football, it's a draft and develop organization. Well, they had not drafted the guys who have developed into the big-time players that they needed, and this is where they are.
Well, look at this. If they invested $150 million into Aaron Rodgers, gave him that type of money, if he was yelling and screaming and kicking to say, hey, I want Mike McCarthy there's no way they fire him. There's no way they fire. Well, so obviously it had to be something right there within that relationship.
And I think that that's part of the untold story that may come out in the coming weeks. There may be unnamed sources reporting maybe some pushback against Aaron Rodgers. That's one thing I noticed this week. We spent a lot of time last week talking about Mike McCarthy's status in Green Bay. And after that loss to the Vikings, you started to see a little report here, a little report there. Maybe Aaron Rodgers is responsible too. And I think we may start hearing some of that from McCarthy's camp.
And all that could be true. And I can live with that. And there's got to be a good relationship between the quarterback and the head coach. But still, to me, you could go to Aaron Rodgers and say, we're going to make this move at the end of the year. Give Mike McCarthy the respect of finishing out the year.
And just to wrap up the point made earlier, just for accuracy, the coach who left the other one in season resigned. So this is really unprecedented that a firing happens.
The 100th season.
Yeah, this was supposed to be a celebratory season. Remember the opening night with the Packers and the Bears on Sunday Night Football. This is the franchise that predates the league by a year. So it's just an odd thing to see. But I do have great respect for what Mike McCarthy did when he came in there, handling the Favre to Rodgers transition, making the playoffs 8 straight years, back-to-back years where they won't make the playoffs, barring a miraculous comeback this year.
And Mike, he's a good coach. He's going to bounce back. He's a good guy. I mean, he's well-respected around the league. I just look at the body language from the players, and you just wasn't getting that excitement or that energy from the players. And it's disappointing. I mean, heck, we've been around the league a long time, and when you play long enough and when you coach long enough, eventually, I mean, it's happened to me a couple times.
And Mike McCarthy will be on the list in Cleveland. He'll have to be. And you sat in that chair a few weeks ago and said you wouldn't hire a defensive coach, right? What are they going to do in Green Bay? They're going to have to go with an offensive coach. And Bruce Arians has been making noise about coaching the Browns. I mean, I look at Bruce Arians as possibly a perfect guy to get through to Aaron Rodgers, push his buttons, line up the end of Rodgers' career with however many years Bruce Arians has left and go for another Super Bowl win or two. But it's got to be an offensive guy to work with Aaron Rodgers.
And you're right about Mike McCarthy. There will be teams now who are on the fence about their head coach who say, well, I've got a chance to get Mike McCarthy. Maybe that pushes the envelope for me.
And what would Mike McCarthy do? And obviously he's had Aaron Rodgers, but with a an organization that spends in free agency, which the Packers historically have not. So maybe the change will be good all the way around. If everyone's going to hire an offensive coach, where are they all going to come from? How many will come from the college ranks to the NFL? It's be interesting to watch.
And sometimes it's okay to part ways. Sometimes it's okay to start over.
Yeah, I mean, 13 years. There's a point where it's time for a fresh start. Fresh start for Kareem Hunt. We don't know where it's going to end. That was the big stunner that happened so quickly on Friday. We spent a lot of time talking about it on the show tonight. But, you know, your big takeaway is we go into Monday and we wait to see whether or not someone is going to make a waiver claim on Kareem Hunt.
If I was a player in the locker room, I would not want him as my teammate because I can forgive a lot of different things. I've made a lot of mistakes myself. But the fact that he hit a woman and then he kicked her, to me, that's inexcusable. I think he needs to sit out. And it's going to take, if I'm a general manager, I wouldn't want him on my team.
I agree. To me, I'd have to see some reflection, some remorse, some repentance, and that's going to take some time. But as we talked about on the show, I'm disappointed in the NFL for not speaking to him. You can't have an allegation that someone in your organization violated policy and then you never discuss it with them. I just don't understand that.
I couldn't agree with you more. The way the league reacts, especially in the life after the Ray Rice situation, what is the investigative arm of the NFL? You're kind of in a difficult spot because when the authorities do not prosecute and the municipalities, in this case Cleveland, does not, what's the league's responsibility? How much length do they have in this? But when Kareem Hunt said, this incident that happened in February, the league did not interview me about it specifically, I was surprised to hear that.
Yeah, and I think that what we saw after Ray Rice was a dramatic overcorrection toward being very aggressive and ignoring what law enforcement does. We don't care what law enforcement does. We're going to do our own thing and make our own decisions. And then came Ezekiel Elliott, where I think they went too far the other way, and that got Jerry Jones' ire. He went after the commissioner. So now I think they're trying to find that middle ground. And in this case, I think their attitude was, look, we checked all the boxes. We've done everything we can, and it's just an open investigation, and we're going to wait for further developments. And to their chagrin, the further developments came.
When I saw the interview, I didn't look at that interview and say, you know what, this guy's really remorseful for what he did. To me, it was a guy that was up there trying to save his job or trying to figure out where his next job is going to be.
And I know when I was coaching, you have team rules and you have things that, you know, are very, very important to you. And if I would get a call from anybody who said, hey, one of your players did this, violated this, the first thing I'm going to do is go to him and say, tell me what happened. Be honest with me. We can get out front of this. We'll get through it. But tell me the truth so I know exactly what we're working with. For the NFL not to do that with Kareem Hunt is just unbelievable.
And, you know, this week the league went through the Deshaun Foster incident after he was involved in another domestic, Reuben Foster, excuse me, he was involved in a domestic violence incident and then was cut by the 49ers before their game last Sunday. So Washington picks him up, and as we saw, the communication internally and externally about that was not handled very cleanly. It would be nice if the league, when they do have these issues and put a player on that commissioner's exempt list, it would be good if they just put a stop on the clock of transactions, put it in timeout, and don't let a team get in this situation where they're going to pick up a player because maybe he'll rehab himself in a year. It's putting the teams in a bad spot, and it's not the right time. It doesn't feel like the right time to be having a conversation about, hey, the clock's running. Do we bring Kareem Hunt in or not in this situation? If it plays out 6, 8, 10 weeks the next season, then you put him back in the pool and players can be picked accordingly. I think that would be just a better thing for the players as well.
It's an easy fix. He can still pass through waivers.
Yes.
You just put him through waivers. When he is cleared, when he is good to come back, that's when the teams can make the decision whether or not they want to make a waiver claim. But that's an excellent point. Why have all that transpire on Monday when we're still in the immediate aftermath of all the bad news that came out Friday?
You don't know what you're going to find out eventually if there is a deeper investigation. And people may say, well, the waiver order, the list of waivers may be different based on who cares at this point.
It's absolutely sending the wrong message that, hey, we're going to figure out where he's going to go before we figure out exactly what happened. That's the wrong message.
Coach, the kid needs help. You watch that video, you see a guy that has some really deep issues, some really deep-rooted anger issues. The kid needs help.
That's an argument, though, in favor of a team claiming him because if he's on a team, he can get more help in a structured environment than if he's just cast into the wilderness for the next year or so or however long until he's cleared to come back. And I watch the Browns because John Dorsey drafted him, and John Dorsey got fired by the Chiefs within 2 months after he drafted Kareem Hunt, and the Browns would not rule out claiming him. when they were asked about it today. So I think that's a team to keep an eye on for
And I know the team structure is important because you want to have the players have a place to go.
Look at
But
Josh Gordon.
Exactly. Hopefully the umbrella of the League Players Association is large enough to set up a structure that even though it's not a team facility, that there's a place for any players who are in issues like this as you go down the line to have a place to at least get them out the back end of this as better citizens. Who knows what's going to happen with their football careers?
Well, next week it will be more football, we think, when we convene here to wrap up the Sunday that will come on Week 14. We'll see you then.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.